The U.S. presidential election is probably the most covered international news story around the world. And after months of campaigning by Democratic incumbent Barack Obama and his Republican rival Mitt Romney, it will all come down to American voters on November 6th. The U.S. is seen as a beacon of democracy around the world, a place where the majority rules, except on those rare occasions when it does not. It happened in the presidential election of 2000, and it could happen again. And if you're one of those people who's wondering why, you're not alone. Washington, D.C., known for the White House and Capitol Hill. But it's also home to these bastions of higher education, like Georgetown University, George Washington University, American University, and of course the Electoral College. Wait a minute. The Electoral College is not really a college at all, so no co-eds, no cheerleaders, no sporting events. But it wouldn't hurt to have an advanced college degree to try and make sense out of this throwback to another time in American history. And if you don't believe me, just ask the experts.
I don't think anyone understands the Electoral College, except perhaps the electors, and they're trying to block out the experience as some sort of trauma. It's so complicated that even law professors like me have to bone up on the Constitution and reread all the provisions and remind ourselves of the peculiar history of this institution in order to figure out why on earth one of the world's leading democracies chooses a president in such a peculiar way.
Jeffrey Rosen is a law professor at George Washington University and a scholar. He's right when he says it's peculiar and complicated to explain, but here goes. The Founding Fathers were worried that big states with large populations like California would have more influence than smaller states with less population like Wyoming. So they came up with this system.
Every state has at least 3 electors. Even the District of Columbia, which is not formally a state, gets 3 electors. For that reason, smaller states have more influence than larger ones.
So voters think they're voting for Barack Obama or Mitt Romney, but they're really voting for electors on Election Day. On election night, candidates see each state as a piece of the puzzle. If you end up with just the right amount of puzzle pieces, you capture enough states, and you can win a ticket to the White House. There are 538 electoral votes, and you need to capture 270 to become president.
I can get something positive done on behalf of the people.
There are, of course, cases like in 2000 when the popular vote numbers and the electoral numbers don't add up. The person with the most electoral votes doesn't end up with the most votes. In other words, the winner of the most votes ends up losing. Rosen says there is an irony to this anomaly, and it has to do with the genes of the candidates.
Ironically, it's cases in which the son or grandson of a president has been running that he tends to lose the popular vote and win the Electoral College. So the first time was John Quincy Adams, who was elected president, even though Andrew Jackson got a larger popular vote. Then we had Benjamin Harrison. Then more recently, of course, we had George W. Bush. So it basically, if President Obama's daughters ever run for office, then there's a high likelihood that they're going to lose the popular vote but win in the Electoral College.
Okay, so that's good news for Sasha and Malia, but what about the American people?
More than 70% of Americans don't like the Electoral College and would like to see it replaced by a popular system. But the truth is that each party gets attached to the system when it leads to results that it likes. So after the election of 2000, Republicans were all for the Electoral College and Democrats don't like it at all. If by chance, after the election of 2012, Barack Obama were to lose the popular vote but win in the Electoral College, which some have suggested is a possibility, you can bet the Democrats are going to be all excited about preserving the system and Republicans will attack it. The other thing is it's very hard to amend our Constitution.
So in a democracy where in theory the majority rules, it does, except of course unless you're talking about the Electoral College. The majority of the people think it's a crackpot idea, and yet it remains. And Rosen says there is a chance that there could be another repeat of 2000. That's when the election came down to just a few thousand votes in one state, all because of a system designed by the Founding Fathers.